Most monthly report.
Breaking news.
Welcome to the Epoch Podcast, your weekly dose of mental foreplay. I'm Matt.
I'm Jen.
I'm Austin.
I'm Christina.
And I'm David.
And this week we're doing one of our things. I don't know. Doing that thing where we just talk about all these things that are going on semi-relevantly. They're happening now-ish. And we want to talk about them. So, tariffs. What's the deal with that?
Tariffs? What you talking about? No. So have you guys ever seen the documentary series on Netflix called Rotten?
Nay.
Ooh.
It is a very good documentary series on different things going on in the food industry. It's not so much about the different GMO or a different diet style. I mean, there's plenty of documentaries about the food industry these days. But this one highlights different segments of the food industry that have different problems. One of them, like they did one on garlic, right? And they talked about big garlic, where there's really two companies. There's one company in China and one company in America, Christopher Ranch, in America, that essentially are the garlic, mafia, and talking about stuff going on with down to manipulating legislation and stuff like that for it. And I realized that so many of these episodes, they did one on fish, they did one on garlic, they did one on oh my gosh, so why am I drawing blanks? They did many episodes. I've watched like 7 of them, and just about every one of them had a major segment that took you over to China as being this massive importer to America, and how there was this constant discussion around tariffs and taxes and the different, they have different names, but they're all essentially tariffs. And in the Netflix documentaries, they did a decent job of not necessarily coming down on one side or the other. In some of them, they just kind of present the case. And it just, with everything going on with Trump in China right now,
China.
I know, China. But I know I know there's a lot of stuff going on that I had a conversation with my buddy Jason about tariffs, and he listens to a regular podcast. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was more libertarian or Republican leaning, pretty popular podcast. I wish I could remember his name. And I know Jason gets a lot of his information from that podcast, and how they were making a case that Trump's tariffs are good. Right now, I follow a more libertarian media, for Reason Magazine, about how, and their kind of idea is the reality that when you tax China, all you're doing is raising prices for the American consumers. Sure. And so that taxation is theft no matter how you slice it. And so I don't know. Do you guys have an opinion on tariffs? Do we have, is it worth something, worth a decent discussion on, there's the basic premise is raise taxes on importers so that American companies are motivated to buy American products. Mm-hmm. So instead of buying garlic from China, I'd rather buy garlic from New Mexico, which is where the garlic one, it was a couple of garlic farmers in New Mexico. Which is in the United States. I don't know if everyone knows that.
For real?
Seriously. My wife grew up in New Mexico, and regularly her mom would have to deal with companies on the phone, and they'd ask where their address was, and they'd say New Mexico, and was told multiple times, "Oh, we only ship inside the United States."
Wow.
I love the idea of when we add new to something. So like, York, we came over to the Americas and said, hey, this is New York. How's it work with New Mexico? Like it was right there. I mean, like it was previously part of Mexico. It's like no,
How's
this
it
is,
doing?
this is the U.S. and this is New Mexico now.
Hey, there's
That's
there's
old
a
Mexico
lot,
down there.
there's a lot of history. What I can't remember what I was going to what I was reading, but the history about with Texas and this area, Arizona and these states is very interesting. Like, because we buy this whole chunk from Mexico, or
Yeah,
just
Mexico
after
went
the
all the way up
Mex-
to Utah.
after the
Crazy to think.
the U.S. Mexican War or something like that, then all of a sudden all of this was ours, and so that was one of the things that Hitler promised Mexico: if you ally with us, that we will give it all back to you.
You know, the diagonal line in Arizona at the bottom of it wasn't supposed to be diagonal. Did you know that?
Oh.
The surveyor was drunk, and the line was supposed to be straight all the way across to the ocean. And in theory, if you look at it, Arizona should have had waterfront property in the Baja Peninsula, in the Baja Bay or whatever bay that is down there.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway,
Whoa!
back to tariffs.
I know.
So-
I know. Ben Shapiro does not like that, because I listened to his stuff, and he's repeatedly made the point that he doesn't think that Trump's basically the same concept of what you said. I mean, if we if we tax China, then they're just gonna raise our prices. Simple and plain. I mean,
Yep, that pass
Well, I
gets
mean-
cost or that cost gets passed along to consumers, like you were saying, Austin. And it's an interesting thing is that yes, you're doing it to actually. Let's ask the question: why are these tariffs being put out there now as opposed to previously?
They probably
So-
in a different
China
time.
has an intellectual property problem,
Sure.
very big one.
Is
Well,
that
and
the?
it's- I mean, if you listen to Trump, his reasoning is basically how many. So trade deals between countries get negotiated, and they decide what they're going to. I mean, we know that not all products from other countries are ones that we want
Mhm.
because they come in, knockoffs, or so you got the intellectual property stuff. So piracy, digital piracy and all that stuff coming out of China. There's a reason you can watch brand new films. If you buy it from somebody on the street, you can watch the newest Marvel film 2 days after it comes out, because as long as it's got Chinese writing on it, there's a lot of that.
I bought
Go
a
ahead.
grip of DVDs while I was in Iraq. Like, so many $5 dual featured DVDs.
So you've got that issue. So obviously there's quote unquote rules and laws around that. And then you've got the food on the show Rotten. It was about, one of the episodes was on fish, and how in the United States we're trying to fish responsibly. We're starting, we have been over the last 20 years implementing more regulations around how much can be caught, and watching the populations in the ocean. And there's the whole episode talks about this different batches of amounts of fish that can be caught, and fishermen having to purchase those licenses and stuff. But if you go over 200 miles out, there's massive ships, literally factory ships, where they catch, process, freeze, and package on the ship just off our coast, that don't care about how many fish you catch. And so the oceans are still being depleted. And then on top of that, we're getting products, so they're being packaged, sent back to China, processed there a lot of times, get filled with additives, and so you have to look at the quality of what we're getting. And obviously, this is just a fact. The way that the current Chinese culture is viewing the planet and treating the planet is horrendous, between the population, or the pollution, the trash, and then the chemical dumping and all that stuff. It is absolutely indicative of something that they want to be the world's leader regardless of what it does to the planet. And so there's a lot of rules around that. And then you finally get the Trump said multiple times how the U.S. is getting screwed over in trade deals, right? And it's that kind of big blanket statement he makes, but it takes different forms. Not the least of which is when China, being a communist country, can sink all this money into a particular industry and then flood the U.S. market with steel or aluminum or whatever they choose to do. One of the episodes was on honey, and like the honey that's coming from China is mostly fake.
Yeah.
Right. And then they're shipping it through other countries like Taiwan and Vietnam and stuff. And honey producers here can't compete with the pricing, and yet the product isn't even real.
Right.
And so, there's just so much reality going on in this trade, in international trade, and namely with China, that I don't blame Trump for trying to address it and trying to fix it. The question is more taxes really the fix? Because literally this last one that he did, I don't know if you guys saw the headlines, I think it was last week, where all the prices in Walmart went up. Like, because Walmart is largely a Chinese factory outlet store. So
it's true. And I do want to acknowledge that, China has some pretty horrible, not environmentally responsible practices for sure. At the same time, like, they are adding renewable energy at a very impressive clip. Like, they are throwing like billions of dollars into it right now. I mean, at the same, and while they do that, they're also like, I think they're probably the world's leading producer of rare earth metals, which are very like environmentally detrimental to even get to. And so I know that with the tariffs coming in, that's kind of been one of the threats lobbied at the U.S. is like, hey, we just won't give you the rare earth metals that are needed for a lot of these electronic products that are coming out. And it's an interesting trade war to be party to. And I was recently reading about it in the sense that if you owe the bank $1, that's your problem. If you owe the bank $1 million, that's the bank's problem. And essentially, China's been our bank for quite some time.
Right. I was wondering how that plays into it at all.
Right.
Well, the thing is though, like, because it's hard in the sense that the U.S. has typically been the place where China makes their money, but China has been trying to isolate themselves from that, in the sense that, I mean, they're realizing that now their own country has a good bit of buying power. I mean, just by the sheer size of it.
Yeah, more luxury cars are sold there than here.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was gonna make the point as far as environmental impact that China has had also in their own country. I mean, do you remember, what was it? Was it the Beijing Olympics? Like, and the smog, the amount of smog that was in the air was so bad that they could barely have any sort of events outside and stuff like that because of the athletes.
And I think they were shutting down factories too for that, like to help drop that down.
Yeah. Well, the real question is, does charging exporters or importers more taxes actually help the U.S. economy? And it is a surface level discussion that on one level that, yes or no, but reality is always more nuanced, and it depends on the industry. It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking manufacturing, that's one discussion. If you're talking raw materials, that's another discussion. You're talking food, electronics. Each one is its own thing. But by and large, the libertarian standpoint is more taxes. All they do is manipulate the market, and market manipulation always ends up causing an imbalance somewhere.
So
go ahead.
go ahead. No, you go ahead. Sorry, you didn't finish you were finishing your thought, and I thought you were
Allow
done.
me to interrupt you and then tell you to go again.
The idea so if there's market manipulation and there's an imbalance somewhere, then what do you do with the fact that China is manipulating the entire world market, right? And they are falsifying so many products, and they are putting out. So it's as a free market individual who loves, don't manipulate the dang market, but at the same time, when China is sending out chemical-based honey, and like you also can't freaking just turn a blind eye like, well, it's the free market. There's a reason that mobsters exist, because if you give them enough power, they can control their own world. And so it's this balancing act between regulation and having a government watchdog, and then letting the market police itself. And by and large, as long as money is the driver, I don't think the market has been policing itself very well for quite some time, because of greed, and because when everything went international 100 years ago, and you started seeing ships, everything like that, and the international industrial revolution, the rules changed, and it has created a lot of wealth for some people, but it's getting scarier and scarier when you get a country like China that doesn't care to play by the rules. And so how do you protect yourself from the bully? In a sense, it's no different than people trying to protect themselves from the U.S. for all these years, and they're in another way. So I'm not saying China is any worse than the U.S., but it is just something that we have to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to me, that's exactly where that's the big catch there, because I feel like the tariffs are almost like a shot across the bow. Hey, we're willing to do something about it. The whole fact that China can produce so much easier because of the lack of regulations that they have is not really fair for the American industry, and that probably has been one of the reasons why we stopped producing stuff here, because you can just obviously get it so much cheaper in China or anywhere else. Well, I mean, get it so much cheaper from China because they don't have to provide the information for the product as far as quality goes, and they don't have all the quality restrictions that they would have here in the States. They won't have to pay their employees as well as they would have to pay them here in the States, and so on and so forth. I mean, the list of restrictions that we've placed on our own industry, which you can also argue, well, maybe we just shot ourselves in the foot in regards to that also. But the fact remains, China has all of this liberty to produce in any way that they want to produce. The U.S. does not. We have been buying from them. So maybe this is just Trump's way of saying, hey, at this moment, we have this kind of power, this buying power, and we are willing to use it to level the playing field somehow. So I don't really feel like it's him trying to do any sort of manipulation with the market. The fact remains, though, it's probably going to screw up our market somehow. Prices are going to go up and so on and so forth. But for all the people that are having that are freaking out in regards to, the prices are going to go up, Trump sucks, Trump's a jerk, it's all his fault, he screwed up the market. Well, you apparently care about the environment a lot too, don't you? And I think that's one of the steps. I mean, that literally is the power that we have right now. We have the purchasing power. Like you said, if we owe them $1 million, it's not just our problem right now. It's their problem also. So maybe it's just him trying to, or it probably is, whatever, trying to get China to the negotiating table. Let's start agreeing to some things. We'll buy from you, but you guys need to play fair.
It's a different Cold War. That's all it is.
Oh,
sure, 100%. I think that it's interesting how one of the goals might be to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. with that in mind, though, if you were somebody who was thinking about opening a factory, would you take advantage of this time in tariffs? I mean, you have to look at how much time is left on Trump's current elections. I don't know.
The question there
term.
is are you going to start? Let's say I'm going to start a cell phone business. I'm going to start making my own cell phones, and I put all this money into tooling. I mean, yeah, you put $2 million into tooling, start making your own cell phones here, then stuff changes, and all of a sudden,
right? That's what I'm getting at. Is like, by 2021, maybe you're looking at a different president who's got a different idea on trade, and so he's like, hey, get rid of these tariffs. Oh, now I'm not competitive, and I just put a ton of money into this.
Well, the practicality of opening your own factory in the United States is it's not profitable, and that's the bottom line. That's why they go overseas, because with all of our hopes of being this, working environment that we give our staff good quality timeframes and breaks and good pay, and with all of that getting put on top of just the budget of everything, like if you're opening a big factory, it's hard to keep all that.
That's where I was going next. The idea that it's not going to be a people-powered factory if it does come to the U.S.
Right.
It's not going to create jobs because we're going to automate everything, every part of it.
Oh, we should do an episode on that.
Well, I mean, it's crazy, like, because are we really, like, do we really want? We want Trump is all like, we're going to bring jobs back to America, and
people don't want to work.
Do we really want those kind of jobs back here? I mean, I know I'm probably pissing off a ton of miners and steel workers, etc., but does that make sense?
Hey, man, just set up the nets around the tower so that people can jump off and try to commit suicide, but then land in a giant net. I mean, that's what they're doing in China with these jobs. So,
well, the thing is, like, it's hard. It's hard to really quantify whether it makes sense. Well, I mean, maybe it's not hard. I don't know, but to me, it just doesn't make sense to say, hey, we want all these jobs back here, but not really. It's kind of like the Democrats saying, we're promising all these, all these benefits, these medical insurance and so on and so forth, but we don't know how the F to pay any of that. Social Security, for goodness sakes. I mean, that was a promise, and now it's broke, and you're going to have all these people that are on Social Security that, do we really want to screw our country so that we can continue paying this stuff? And so it's the idea, okay, we're going to bring jobs back to the US, we're going to bring all these jobs back here, but is it feasible? Are we going to hurt our economy by doing that? It's sad that these industries aren't viable here in the States at the moment, but does it really make sense to bring them back?
So a very real example from the movie, that series on Rotten, the garlic one. There's a guy here, I think he's in Virginia, who has a company, and it's got machinery and stuff to peel and package raw garlic. The cloves in whole form, already pre-peeled. And he can't compete. He could barely keep his doors open because you can get peeled and packaged raw garlic from China through Christopher Ranch and the other big company in China. I can't remember the name of it. And he heard from a friend of his in the industry that they actually do all their peeling and stuff in the prisons in China. And he got a camera, and he actually videotaped, sure enough, the garlic that you get from China, peeled and packaged, is peeled by prisoners for free. And they show this part where, like,
what are they doing to it? Like, that's just immediately what
exactly. Their fingernails are so destroyed that they have to bite the roots off the garlic. They can't use their fingernails because they don't have any nails. And they're literally just peeling garlic for days, and they have to do like a full bushel every day.
Someone should show them the life hack of how to peel garlic really fast.
Just put it in the jar
stick it in
and
a container and shake it around. It's really really easy.
right. Just give inmates a lot of jars that don't break into glass shards. They can
Imagine
stab everybody with.
You were jaywalking one
It's
day
plastic.
and you ran out of social currency. You ended
And
up
now you're
And you had to
peeling
go peel
garlic.
garlic for 20 years.
peeling garlic.
Oh my word.
I mean,
with
I mean,
like-
I like the idea. I think the concept is like it's giving, someone who's in prison something to do. But
Yeah, I mean they should have
I mean, we pay inmates to work here like $0.25 an hour, but at the same
You?
time,
Yeah.
oh yeah. Like I mean, when we were in
like
Arizona,
cleaning the
I
road.
didn't know that.
I want to do an episode on the prison system.
For
I think
reals?
it's
Oh
really-
yeah, that's.
oh yeah, man. Like I mean, there was I can't remember the name of it. Was it Safety Services? Basically, these guys were putting together manuals to help people comply with OSHA. I mean, it might have been kind of blackmailish. Like, hey, do you guys have a safety program for this? Oh, you don't? Well, we won't let OSHA know about it if you let us make the program for you. Like, I don't know if that's. I'm sure that's not how it went. That's what I kind of imagined it would go.
Oh.
But
Well,
and so those guys would do like the quote unquote research and put those programs together for $0.25 an hour or whatever it was, and
I mean, it's better than just sitting around in a cell all day. I mean,
sure,
yeah. Well, one, the conditions aren't exactly our prison.
right, the same.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
legal
But-
slavery. That's what it is.
Yeah, it is, and it's well. Here's the thing: we're talking
I
about
did
jobs,
pay.
right? This isn't just about products. This isn't just about how much something costs. It's about jobs, supposedly. So, as Matt was saying, if we were peeling the garlic here, are you gonna have a bunch of prisoners doing it? You're gonna have a bunch of machines doing it,
Right.
So it isn't we'll just bring all the jobs back. No, we won't. We'll bring the industry back, but we'll bring a fraction of the jobs back because we're not going to get people to peel garlic all day.
Right.
Like it's just so no, we won't bring. It's not 1-to-1. Oh, there's 200,000 people in China in this industry. Yeah, and if we bring it back here, it's going to drop to 10,000 because it will be automated. It will be more efficient. It will be mechanized, and so it isn't. It's an unfair argument to focus on the employment side of it without acknowledging, our other episodes on automation and all AI and all that stuff, because it's not the same discussion.
Well, and on top of that, the reason why I was gesticulating wildly was because of
And I ignored you.
yes,
Right.
Christina
And I
told me
smacked
to
him.
shut up.
No, I didn't.
Like a jerk. Think about the what's the shady dealings to where you have a public entity providing work for a private company.
Mm.
Like, I would assume that the prisons are public and they're for free
In China?
providing this service.
Yes.
In China, maybe.
That's part of the episode. Go watch it.
I mean, that's messed up.
Oh.
I mean, think about it. You kind of have like the government that it can basically do whatever it wants over there without regards to the citizenry, just doing whatever they want and providing all these shady deals and putting basically putting their finger on the balance in a way that the government here would never be able to do. I mean, think about what would happen if you would have, Walmart having the prisoners pack their vehicles or stock shelves or something like that. I mean, think about the public outcry and whatever.
Well, but in general, like the market is starting to care about stuff like that. Well, not starting; it's been caring for a while, but more and more people are caring. So,
Yeah, but
where
I
the
mean,
products come
you
from,
have
how
the what are these? The G20 summits or whatever on global warming, and everybody's sitting there kumbayaing about how terrible the we're going to be underwater in 20 years or whatever. And here China is, okay, I'm just going to dump all this crap into the ocean without regards to anything. Whereas over here in the States, it's like, well, we're going to have a tax on companies that, we're going to make all the buildings green buildings, or else they're going to get taxed or whatever.
I think just the sooner all the products can be on the blockchain and people can just see very clearly the background of all of them, it's going to change things.
Ooh. Ethereum just made some big progress in that department too.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a perfect segue.
Right?
Tariffs.
Cryptocurrency?
So, I mean, one of the cool things about crypto going on right now is obviously one, the price recovery. But like, I think as a website, we put out stuff on crypto, I think last summer. And at that point, the crypto markets had kind of retraced their, all the gains that they made, they'd given back at least half, I think, by the time we wrote those articles. And it was going, Bitcoin had gone up to close to $20,000. I think around the time we wrote the articles, they were about $6,000 again, or Bitcoin was. And then, bottoming out around 3,000 a few months ago. Bitcoin's, I mean, I've been watching it pretty close the last week or so. It's about to, it potentially could cross 9,000 like today. So, 9,000 for Bitcoin is where excellent memes really begin, especially if you're a fan of anime. But I don't know. There's the cool thing about cryptocurrency. It's an essentially an emerging market, and every time one of these cycles takes place, the amount of development and progress that's happened between the last boom and bust is impressive. So I don't know. Have you guys been looking at your Blockfolio apps with joy over the last month or so? Or
I just opened mine up.
Mine died. Well, I broke my phone screen and I had to fix it, and I haven't finished it. But my computer, my old Mac, died last year, and I had brought it here. I don't know why, but so then on Saturday, I'm like, I'm gonna try to get it to work and see, because my parents have this little monitor, and I hooked it up, and I was able to get it to work. So I moved all my crypto stuff that was sitting on that computer and moved it over to. So yeah, it was a very, very good Saturday.
Right on.
So yeah.
So you haven't looked at your stuff though, is that what you're saying?
Well, I haven't looked at the portfolio as a whole recently, though.
Well,
No,
it's
I
like
did
doubled.
show it to you the other day.
Yeah.
That actually worked. It's making a recovery.
Huh.
Obviously the markets could correct again off this, this large uptrend. It could obviously correct back down a bit, but man, oh man, it's been fun to watch in the last month and a half. There was just, I think a 30-minute period yesterday where Bitcoin went up $400. Like just going up.
And that's what I was telling Christina. Like, I was like, man, people go nuts. Oh, crypto's going up. Let's buy. Okay, you buy, and then, crypto corrects a little bit or whatever, and they're like, oh, crap, and they sell or whatever. And then I just lost money on Bitcoin, and I don't want to do anything with it ever again or whatever. And so then it goes down, stays down for a little bit. Then people start realizing, yeah, no, this actually makes a little bit more sense or whatever. Or people that, I'm just going to, and it starts going back up. And it's, you just have to know, for one, you have to be a little bit disciplined, especially in regards to, investments and stuff like that. But
sure. And we're not financial advisors. But
yes.
there is definitely something to be said for like dollar cost averaging into something and just buying a little bit, on a regular basis versus like getting emotionally excited about something and just throwing it all in there and then getting emotionally like choked up and frozen when you see it go down. Like, oh, I bought it the wrong time. Now, maybe it's all going down. So then, emotions are not a good thing when it comes to investments.
I feel like that was part of the problem with last year, or whenever it was that it started going up quickly, was that there were several shows that were talking about it, and like sitcom type shows, YouTubers, everything. So that's where I feel like a bunch of people that didn't know anything got into the market.
Well, yeah.
Because of I'm curious. Does anybody follow The Simpsons? Like, have they ever made an episode on cryptocurrency or anything? Because they usually
on point with their prediction.
Simpsons did it.
What I'm going to put this out there. I don't know. You guys probably know this kind of stuff a little bit better than I do. But I was watching a guy the other day. He was a guy that was talking about investment. He said like the .com, after the .com, they Greenspan artificially inflated the or they took measures to restore the market. He said within the first 3 years, it took them it lost like 50% of the market. It took them about 3 years to bring it back. But what they did was they reduced interest rates to zero, therefore causing the next crash, which would be in 2008, because of all the subprime mortgages that came from the fact that they reduced the interest rates to zero. So you had a bunch of people that got mortgages that should not have gotten mortgages, and then they're like, how the heck are we going to get paid for that? Okay. The market crashes again. It crashes, loses another 50%. It takes them about 3 years to come back. But what they did was they printed more money.
Yep, quantitative easing, baby.
So they say we had around $1 trillion in circulation at that point. There's now, what, 4 or 5 trillion?
Ooh, I don't know numbers.
Do you know, Austin, off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head. I know it's essentially there's no, they used to do QE1, QE2, QE3. Now it's just endless QE.
Well,
quantitative easing.
They were saying that it's essentially just recently come to an end. I guess I'd have to look it up again. However, the Fed will resume buying Treasury notes at a pace that is greater than, the crisis levels of buying Treasury notes. So I was going back to our tariff thing a little bit, China being one of the biggest buyers of our debt. I'm curious if this is us picking up, or the Fed picking up the slack and buying Treasury notes. But
what he also said was, like, the market right now is so good, mainly because all the Wall Street companies, all these companies are buying back their own stock.
Yes. Yep.
So it's technically artificially inflated. And so what he's saying is, we're pretty much cruising for another crash here very soon.
That's usually what happens right before things go south.
And so, like,
people are trying to keep their stock price afloat, and then so they start taking all their profits that they've built up and start kind of buying their company back. So
I'm awake.
And so it makes you really appreciate a deflationary asset like several cryptocurrencies that have fixed amounts.
That's what I was like, man. And he was like, well, he asked the group, and they're like, what would be a good thing to get into? And I was like, crypto. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's one of those things that, okay, yeah, I mean, maybe it makes sense to hedge with crypto if you have any sort of
capital,
stocks, assets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matt, what would you say is the most reliable blockchain?
The most reliable?
Or the best blockchain?
Oh man, that's a tricky question, man. I think one of the biggest qualities you can give to a blockchain is its time in existence, because that means it's withstood, everything to get to that point. So the longest one being, Bitcoin is, super solid. They're trying to bring more utility to it. It's got that name brand recognition to it. That's actually being fought for right now. It's kind of fun. There's a guy named Craig Wright who claims to be Satoshi Nakamoto, and he recently went to the U.S. Copyright Office and got copyright registrations for the original Bitcoin white paper. And I think maybe the name, I'm not quite sure, but what a lot of people didn't realize is that as long as you're willing to pay the fees up front, you can go ahead and get those registered too. You can be Satoshi if you want to. It's not ultimately a big deal, but to kind of provide a little bit of background here, Bitcoin was created. He claims to be Satoshi, who was the pseudonym used to create Bitcoin. around 2016. Gosh, maybe it's 2017. I'm sorry. Bitcoin had a hard fork where people didn't agree with how to scale it. So the majority of the hashing power of the computers that support the network went with Bitcoin. A significant amount went with the other fork side of that, which is Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash eventually had its own issues. So it went from, there was Bitcoin Cash and then Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. And that's where Craig Wright is. And he's the one claiming to have like Satoshi power now. And so anybody that's using the blockchain or the Bitcoin name, he's going to sue him. He's going to, there's a bunch of defamation suits he's got going on towards a variety of people who have said that he's a fraud, that he's not Satoshi. And it's just really fun to sit back and watch the whole thing unload. Like Bitcoin was released under an MIT distribution license. It was open source. Here it is. And so why would somebody go ahead and create a pseudonym and release something open source only to come back later and say, it was me and I'm making it private now.
Closing the source.
I'm going to sue everybody that doesn't agree and make this the world's money. Like nobody, I mean, very few people buy it. I almost have to mute or block people that have a BSV in their Twitter handle because it's just so obnoxious. I mean, I would describe it as like cult-like behavior where you've got this glorious leader who can do no wrong, even though the community outside sees a bunch of red flags. And then, anybody that challenges his positions, they just don't understand. They couldn't understand, the people on the inside, the BSV believers can understand. And I could go on it for a while, but.
My hypothesis is that it was a group thing that was created and that guy was originally part of the group and then he got bitter for some reason and it's just raising a ruckus.
Very, very possible.
That's
it could be a group of people that did it and the others are dead now. I mean, it's been a decade now. It's been, a lot could happen in a decade. To answer your question, Austin, the other, another blockchain that, is definitely up there is the Ethereum blockchain. Those two are probably the most decentralized, I think. I mean, lots of people would probably argue with me on that. And Ethereum's been around quite a while now. It's in the process, though, of shifting from what's called proof of work to proof of stake, and those are how the network's supported. It has to do with it's a big shift. It's a really big shift, and it's not to be underestimated on how big of an endeavor it'll be for Ethereum to go from proof of work, which is basically computers working to solve a problem on on a set amount of time basis, and then going to proof of stake, where basically people are just being a part of the network as a node by putting some of their money on the line to verify transactions. I'm probably butchering it, and it probably is confusing, so I'll stop. But it's a big undertaking. It's been part of Ethereum's plan, though, for a long time to go to that. Hypothetically, being proof of stake is far more environmentally sustainable because you're not running just mass amounts of computing power for the hell of it. You're just running your computer as is. It doesn't take much at all to run a staked node. If that's even how you say that. But
yeah, the amount of energy and materials needed to run blockchains are impressive. Yeah, it's well, they're the largest computers in the world for a reason.
Sure, and then people with gold bugs, especially, say how environmentally friendly blockchain stuff is, but at the same time, the amount of energy that's gone into gold mining is dwarfs it. It's not even close. When you think about all the petroleum that's been used throughout that entire process, just for that, just for the actual operation of it, not for the creation of the machinery, the transport of it, it's
right.
It's a huge amount.
So one of the things the reason I asked about the blockchain is because we went from tariffs over to cryptocurrency using a comment that Christina made about, when we're talking about the quality of materials coming from China or places like that, and if you could put that stuff on the blockchain and track where everything came from, that you could have a more responsible buying experience. And there is a wonderful video on the Epoch by Vinay Gupta. It's a conversation with Sweetbridge about how to use blockchain in things other than just cryptocurrency. And the basic premise being that you could use blockchain technology to track and access all of the data from literally from the mine, the miner, the employee who found that stuff, and like think of a cell phone, all of the different minerals and things that go into it, the time, and you can literally blockchain that entire product down to the individual. And even if you wanted to, depending on what they're getting paid, are they a slave labor? Are they what are they going through, into where you can literally buy that cell phone versus that cell phone based on being a socially responsible purchaser of cell phones. And the blockchain technology being able to decentralize that information so that it can't be manipulated and it can't be lost and stuff like that. I mean, blockchain technology is, obviously this group knows, but for the listeners, blockchain technology is the real long-term world changer, other than just the cryptocurrencies itself. If Bitcoin dies, if Ethereum dies as coins, the technology will still change the world. Like, that's guaranteed. So
100%. We've been going for a while now, and probably time to move into our product segment of this show. I know I've got a couple I'll start with. I know for me, somebody who's become fairly active in the last year after being dormant for a long time, and fairly athletic before that, I've had issues with muscle imbalances in my life. So I've accumulated quite a few tools that have been helpful in eliminating those imbalances. One of them being on my hand right now. It's a tool designed to strengthen the muscles that are kind of the opposite of your grip muscles. If you're not able to actually see this, oftentimes we work on grip strength, or we just naturally grab things and develop strong forearm muscles on that side. But the muscles on the opposite side of our forearm and our hand get neglected. So the ability, getting so out of balance in that area can cause issues with your nerves and your wrists and your elbow. And so a lot of people find relief by strengthening and just the other muscles on the opposing side. And it doesn't take that long to get them going once you start.
So the people that are just listening audibly, there's a band that's wrapped around each of your fingers, and you're just separating them. Your fingers are starting together, and then they're separating, and they're coming back. So
it's like a big rubber band that you can put all 5 fingers in these little loops, and then spread the rubber band out
and make fun faces.
And they come in different colors, and there's different strengths, so they kind of like level up.
Yeah.
Matt, I have I guess what they would call tennis elbow, but right here on my, that tendon on the top of my elbow.
Sure.
If I do a lot of, I was a stonemason for 4.5 years.
Sure.
And oh my God, we called it the demon elbow because it was excruciating. So is that an example when you say just strengthening the other side would?
So people have found relief from, I think specifically tennis elbow with something like that. I was not in the exact same boat, but when I was doing landscaping, when we were starting up Epic Nation Ministries, just to bring in a little bit of money, it was, I basically lost feeling in my hands for the summer, just from using the pitchfork so much. But it's not just manual labor that causes those kind of issues. Some people, maybe they spend a lot of time at a keyboard typing. Maybe they develop issues with carpal tunnel. Some people found relief, just simply working the other side of the hand and forearm.
Chefs do too. Chefs with knife work and mixing bowls and stuff. They're doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So
my wife is one. That's how I know.
Right on. So obviously we'll post a link for that, but you can find these things from anywhere from $5 to $20. I think the ones that I got were about $11. Obviously, with the material that they're made out of, if you get something that's too cheap, it'll just tear apart. So you want to have some kind of quality to it.
We're going to have links for it on the site?
Yes, we'll have links for it on the site. And beyond that, just keeping in that general theme of kind of physical therapy stuff or just athletic training, just the ability to have some TheraBands, like these are the ones I'm holding are very small, but they're awesome for a variety of uses. Like I work with my kids a lot when it comes to speed training or working and developing maybe your not just your shoulders, but like your rotator cuff specifically. And so there's TheraBands like this that can be used for speed training or just developing, muscles that are kind of harder to work. And then there's ones that are, have handles on them. You can clip them to chain link fences or, wrap them around maybe like a table leg or something like that. That's secure. And I've been able to, get full workouts in with just bands. A lot of people only ever see these things at like a physical therapist's office or something like that. I like to be active. I've spent very little money on it. Like I don't have a gym membership. I literally put together a pull-up bar out of pipe and like a 2x6 and then mounted it in my garage. And then I've got a bunch of little TheraBands and like one set of dumbbells. That's it. And I feel like I can do anything I want to do and get a full body workout. So
You also have rings.
oh yeah, and I threw the rings, some gymnast rings on that pull-up bar for kind of gives options for dips and whatnot. I probably could throw those rings in there too. That'd be a cool thing. I like the rings.
And a trampoline.
Okay, that's different though. That's for fun.
But it's working.
So just to sell those rings real quick, gymnast rings have added so much fun and difficulty to just average movements. Whether you're doing like a dip movement, do a dip movement on rings, and all of a sudden, all those surrounding muscles in your joint that just are there to keep it stable are burning and on fire because they're getting worked so hard. Or maybe if you're usually using like, I don't know, some kind of bars to do your dips on, or even just doing pull-ups on, like you make that platform unstable, and all of a sudden all your stabilizing muscles have to work super hard and super good for you, especially if you're somebody who's had joint issues. If you're strengthening those muscles around that joint, it's not going to go badly for you. It's going to go really well. In my unprofessional, undoctored opinion.
Cool.
Nice.
The product I have is something that actually Matt bought, and then it hangs out on his desk. And so I'm sitting here doing podcasts. I fidget with it because I'm a kinesthetic learner and I like to fidget with things to keep me engaged. And so it is this fabulous spinner from Inception. It even has Inception on it. So just like in the movie, it's that little silver top, and I spin it a lot while we're podcasting and talking, and it helps me to stay focused. So that's the product.
It reminds you that we're in the right reality, the right level.
Yes. Though sometimes I can spin it really fast. I'm like, oh, is this a dream? But then it stops. But I can spin it pretty big, long.
But its use as a totem now is totally ruined. It's been on the internet. So
yeah, but it's still on the internet, and it'll be linked in our stuff. You can purchase it if you want.
I don't know. Going with the, I was going to do a book as I always liked the books. I'll just mention it, Hidden Power by Thomas Troward.
Yeah.
But keeping with the physical therapy and bands, I was just thinking, like, I literally, if you could see my setup here, I have my 2 computer monitors, my computer, and I have an Xbox over there that I plug into one monitor, and I use that to exercise with P90 and P90X3, which, if you can't see in the camera, on the back closet door there's a band that has been hanging there for every episode that I use for certain exercises. And so, yeah, I get the P90X and P90X, and then there's P90, P90X, P90X2, P90X3. P90X is the famous one, and it is extreme. It is like an hour minimum every day, and it will kick your butt. A lot of them are like an hour and a half and stuff, and you're kind of meant to already be fit by the time you start it. P90X2 is for athletes, so it's really focused on like different types of muscles that athletes would need, ligaments, strengths, and stuff like that. P90X3 is for people like me who want to be fit, but I don't want to spend an hour and a half every day working out. And so they're 30 minutes. And they did all the research, and they've known for years that by and large about 80 to 85% of the results, the benefits you get of exercise, you get in the first 30 minutes. And then then it transitions over to, if you're an athlete and stuff, you need that stamina and stuff like that. That's a whole nother reason to keep going longer. So X3 is great if you've got you want to be nice and fit, but you're not necessarily looking to look like some bodybuilder, and you you don't have time. And then and I started quite a bit out of shape. I've lost 30 pounds so far.
Yeah, baby.
And so I decided to start with just the original P90, which they refilmed. He came out with it years ago when it was on VHS. Literally, it was. I mean, I have the original, like the original, and no, I had it on DVD.
Okay,
but it was 2 DVDs.
No way to play it.
It was like it just early '90s clothes and everything like that. Tony Horton was like in his 30s. But I saw an advertisement that they redid it with quite a few more exercises, and it's more modern. It's the recent one they did. So I reordered P90, and basically the point is P90 is if you're not in the best shape, but you want to start getting in shape and you want to use some bands, you order it, you get the band with it. I do have a couple dumbbells and stuff like that, but you don't need that. And it literally is, the whole point of the program is to be able to get fit with nothing but a couple bands and gravity and your body. And so I am a huge fan of all of Tony Horton's P90 programs and Beachbody in general. It's good stuff. But yeah, I couldn't help but, as you're talking about the bands, Matt, I'm literally staring at 2 products I use every day. And I've recommended to so many people, and I have quite a few friends who've done it. And yeah, it is a legit workout in your home, super easy, super quick. I mean, I live half hour from town, so literally if I did the same workout, I'd have to add an hour in and an hour back just to go to a gym, plus the cost of membership and all that. Versus I paid $80 one time, and I can work out until the DVD breaks. So.
Yeah, but there's something to be said for actually being able to work out at home, where like there's no barrier to go work out. It's just all right. I go downstairs or I go into the living room, whatever it is, and I'm there. I can start.
Yep. Yeah.
This is making me feel lazy.
Let it marinate.
Yeah, right. I didn't actually prepare a product, but when Jen was talking about her fidget thingy, reminded me that I actually have a number of fidget toys that we bought the kids over the years, and Maverick, our son, has been super entertained by them. So I'll link a couple fidget things below. I don't have them here to show, but I'll. Yes.
Definitely.
What's mine?
Kids really like that. So
Came across this pair of sunglasses. They're supposed to be. I mean, they're pretty. They're lightweight and they're supposed to be somewhat durable, but they had polarized lenses. And maybe this is a new age, but I remember when polarized lenses on sunglasses made the sunglasses pretty expensive.
Right.
These are $28.
Oh wow.
$28, $5 to send them to you. They look pretty cool. Christina hates the sunglasses that I have right now, and they're kind of annoying to me sometimes. So I think I'm going to purchase these.
That said, thanks for joining us this week. Another fun show. At least I've enjoyed listening to all these over and over again as we edit them and all that kind of stuff. I don't think we've killed any topics here. They're just simply primers to get you started into looking into them. You can check them out on social media. We've got things going on there now. Epic Ideas on Facebook, and where else, Tina?
Well, all the places. I can't guarantee there's any new content going on all the places, but you can find our platform or our profile.
Right on. And then, of course, the Epoch, EPOCH.org. If you're looking for the product links that we've talked about. They would be in the podcast side of things on there. So if you look up towards the top side of the website, you'll see a word that says podcast. Shocker. And click on that and you'll find the most recent stuff related to it. And these links will be in there.
If you guys also want to download some stuff from the Epoch library, then you can also support us through there. You don't have to. We provide the MP3s
For free.
for free because we have a deal with the Chinese prison camp. But yeah, no. Anyways, yeah.
No,
To
but
get serious,
On our Patreon, we have the behind the scenes and some random story type things that happen, outtakes that you can access for only $1 a month.
Ooh, that's a
So-
steal. That's a deal.
I don't know if you've noticed, but we kind of have a lot of fun doing these podcasts, and things get a little goofy sometimes, right, Austin? Even
What?
though
For you.
serious?
He may or may not have giggle fits at times.
Yeah, sometimes.
Is that creepy enough for you?
Yeah.